Hello, everybody. And I was able to get Miss Dana on, as you can see.
Hi.
And we aren't live. I will be uploading this. Sorry, I have a mint in my mouth. We just both ate, so.
I know.
So
okay.
like almond mints and stuff. So,
Sorry.
and sorry, it's a little dark in here. She's not used to the YouTube life.
No, not at all.
So there's like no lighting at all.
No, I have no camera ready spot available. Sorry.
Yep.
We'll work on that.
Yes, we'll have to deal with this. Okay. Let me get a little closer here so you can get more in the shot.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
All right. So I wanted to talk to, we were actually had no clue the topic we were going to do until about 2 minutes ago. So.
But we're going to do it.
We're going to do it.
Let's do it.
Yes, let's do it. Okay. So I wanted to have her on today. I thought of this. This is a subject that a lot of parents deal with nowadays. We're going to talk about Sam, her son, and my piano student. I get to teach him, and he is amazing. He has perfect pitch. One of my students that has perfect pitch.
Yep.
It's crazy. I'm like, okay, Sam, sing A. And he'll sing it, play it on the piano, perfect.
Yep.
He's amazing.
Thank you.
So many of you like, so many of your kids are amazing. Almost every single one at music.
Well, thanks.
They just.
We like music. That's our thing.
They're great. But we're going to talk about the journey with Sam. Parenting a special needs child. Parenting a child that's on the spectrum.
Yes. And
kind of her journey into that. And, you know, just hopefully it'll be a help. And if you have children that maybe you're questioning, are they on the spectrum? Are they not? This might kind of help you notice little signs and things and what to look for. So, okay, let's go into the journey of Sam.
Okay, so Samuel was perfectly normal pregnancy, you know, no trouble labor and delivery, never had any issues in the very beginning. At that time, we were still vaccinating, so he was fully vaccinated from birth. I don't think I did the the day of birth vaccines, but we went shortly thereafter and got him vaccinated. I guess I need to talk here. Do I need to talk to you? I feel weird.
Either or.
So anyway, he was vaccinated. Around 2 months, I started to notice some serious physical problems.
2 months?
Yes, 2 months old. It wasn't long at all. And he didn't sleep. You know, he started this pattern. Of course, he's a new baby, so it didn't really, you know, it's funny, looking back, you can line up all the dots and connect everything. But at the time, as we were going through it, you know, it's just things that are happening in your life, things that are happening new baby. And I wasn't really thinking anything was wrong, per se. So he didn't sleep through the night. He cried a lot. You know, they said he had colic. I started to notice some problems with his skin. He developed these huge, like, boils on his skin, like big lesions on his skin, oozing, sores. It was really, really bad. Couldn't really treat it with anything. They called it eczema, of course, which is, you know, like the catch term for any kind of skin issue. I still don't know where to talk. I'm sorry.
You can talk to both.
Okay.
When you're talking to the audience, you can talk to me too.
Okay. So we started to treat the skin stuff first. Of course, they say it's allergies, you know. I don't know. One thing led to another. Tons of doctor visits, problems with stomach issues, lots of huge physical problems in the beginning. Sensitivity to milk. You know, when I tried to switch him from, I didn't nurse him, so I tried to switch him from formula to cow's milk. Huge constipation issues to the point that he, you know, would lay in the floor and I'll have to pump his little legs to get him to go to the bathroom and soak him and prune juice and everything that you try. And of course, I was a young mom. You know, Sam was just my second, so I didn't really know all the tricks and you know, ins and outs. And the internet was not what it is now. Actually, I don't even know that the internet was hardly anything then. This was 2004 when he was born. So anyway, I didn't have a lot of access to help. You know, I went to a regular standard pediatrician who didn't really give me any good advice except what a general practitioner would. So I guess about 18 months, we started to be, you know, wondering when he was going to talk, you know, but still not really worried. And a lady approached me at church and said, I think that your son is on the spectrum. And I didn't even know what that meant at the time. I had no idea. You know, what do you mean? She said, I think he's autistic. Well, this is a woman I'd known my entire life, you know, and I was very offended by what she was saying. It made me really mad because we just thought he's his second child. He'll talk when he's ready. You know, I'm not really concerned about this at all. But she worked with special needs kids. This woman knew her stuff, and she knew what to look for. And she had picked up on signs in the church nursery. She kept church nursery. He was in there, and he would not make eye contact. He would not respond to his name. He wouldn't, you know, come when called. He couldn't sit. He wanted to walk. just so many different things. He would get down on the floor and look at the wheels on a car instead of playing with it. He would line things up in a row. He would sort by color. I mean, there's just so many different things that were glaringly obvious to somebody who was used to dealing with kids like this.
Right.
But to me and Grayson, it just, okay, he's just doing his thing. He's being Sam. So I disregarded her advice. I did not listen. Around a little after that, was a few months after, I guess, he developed rotavirus. If you've ever had a kid with rotavirus, it's like the most horrible thing on earth. He got very dehydrated. We went to the hospital, ended up being admitted in the hospital, stayed, overnight, a couple of nights so they could get him taken care of. Well, they do what they always do at the hospital, and they go through all the questions with you. Is he doing this? Exactly. All the milestone questions. When did he crawl? When did he walk? And I remember the lady, as like it was yesterday, asking me, how many words does he have? And I said, well, he has 4 words. She was like, 4 words? And I laughed, and I'm like, yeah, and 2 of those are nonsense words. He would say dog and ball, and then he would say fun to hay and done away. We still joke and laugh about these words. I don't know what these words are. I have no idea. Fun to hay and done away.
Oh, that's
and
funny.
So he had 4 words, and you could just tell. I could tell in her face that it was like. And so she keeps asking her little questions, and there were so many that she's like, every question that I would answer in the way that she was looking for at this point, her eyes would get a little bit bigger. So she's like, I think that you need to see a specialist. She said, I'm going to send somebody in to talk to you while you're here about Sam's development. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Well, somebody came in. And that sort of started our road, to make a long story short, to him getting an autism diagnosis by the time he was 3.
Wow.
We actually went through therapy after that time. We had hearing checked because, he wouldn't respond. You could stand behind him and, Sam, Sam, Sam. And he just was completely oblivious. He was in his own little world. And so, they're like, well, maybe he's deaf. Maybe that's what it is. So we had his hearing tested. Of course, his hearing was completely fine.
Right.
We went through a series of therapies, I guess, floor time therapy and some behavior therapy and things like that with a lady here in East Tennessee that works with special needs kids. But even she this whole time was saying that she didn't really feel like it was autism. But, we'll just try to get him in gear. Well, time went on. He was almost 3 years old, and I thought nothing was changing. He wasn't gaining any vocabulary. He wouldn't communicate with me. It was like he just lived in his own little world. He just sort of existed in this little bubble, completely, unaware of what was around him. To the point, my big scare came when Christmas morning, before he was 3, we were at my parents' house. Everybody's opening gifts. You know how it is. It's wild. It's crazy. There's paper everywhere. Everybody's excited and happy. And we look up and couldn't find him. And so we go out and, start, how you do, panic, start running through the house, searching everywhere. My mom just happens to look outside, and he was down the road in the rain in the middle of a dead end. Yes, on my parents' street. Fortunately, it was a dead end. It was Christmas morning. There were no cars out. But literally just standing there in the rain. So we would have to put locks on the door. We were we'd get out of the car, at the grocery store or something. He would bolt immediately across the parking lot. So it got to where I couldn't unbuckle him and tell him right there to be able to get him out of the car. I remember when Grayson and I were first, married, and I would make fun of people who had their kid on a leash. Well, we had our kid on a leash at this point. Because,
you had to for safety.
Exactly. So, it became obvious to me by that time there's something wrong.
Right.
So I contacted my lady that I had dealt with doing the therapies, the delay, the speech therapy, and the floor time and ABA and stuff. And she said, we'll get him in here and have him evaluated by a team, and just see what they think. And so we made our appointment at Fort Sanders, downtown Knoxville. And the lady who actually headed up his evaluation is the word I'm trying to find, was a lady that I had babysat her girls for years prior to. And so it was so nice because I was so nervous. It was a nervous wreck. And I get there, and here's this woman that I loved dearly and had known for so many years. And she put me at ease and walked us through and was very honest with me because she knew me. She didn't hold anything back. And I remember sitting there right after Christmas, in the room, and they're like, we believe that he has autism. This is why. This is what we're finding. And, autism is an umbrella term. It doesn't really, there's no blood test. There's no surefire way to know. It is literally just based on a series of symptoms or behaviors that they see in a child. And so they gave us an autism diagnosis. And from there, we started in special ed, preschool.
Mm-hmm.
He was in preschool from 3, 4, and 5. And then we ended up finally pulling him before he started first grade because we realized that the public school system was just not going to be the best place for him.
Exactly.
But how much more? I don't know. What all do you want me to say?
Man.
I could go on and on.
I know. Well, I'm going to pick your brain about it.
Okay.
Okay. So how old was he before he finally started talking? I mean, how many years into this journey?
So he actually, this is so funny. He read before he talked. And I know that sounds bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
But he taught himself to read. It's almost like he figured out, just like his little brain works with music, it works with letters too. It's like he figured out the code, that crack the code or break the code curriculum for homeschoolers. Well, Sam cracked the code very early. So it was probably around 4, I guess, that he was reading. And the way I figured it out is I had this set of flashcards. I remember them well. And I would have a picture on one side and the word on the other side.
Right.
And so he memorized the word based on sight at first.
Okay.
He could see the word, like king on one side, and have a picture of a man with a crown. The other side, the word king. Well, I could show him only the words, and he could rip them off really fast. But he wouldn't communicate. I couldn't say, Sam, how was your day? Sam, what do you want for lunch? Sam, go get your shoes. None of that made any sense to him.
But he would say the words.
Yes, but you could sit with him in a book.
So crazy.
Well, he loved to be read to.
Okay.
We would read books for hours, and he had them all memorized. He could recite them. He would recite them all the time. He would spell. Once he learned to read, he would spell everything, like everything. You'd be at the grocery store. There's a magazine there that says some wordy dirt on it. You're not supposed to say.
Oh, no.
And Sam's like, and you just rip off the word. So to the point that at therapy, his teacher at preschool made me a little card. Because they're real big with the PEC schedule and, the little icon cards that you could show them that meant something. Because if they wouldn't follow a verbal command, a lot of times they will follow like a picture.
Visual.
Yes, exactly. And so she had one, and it had a little person with a little bubble above their head, and it had letters in it, and then it had a big X through it. No spelling. But he didn't really communicate until it was probably kindergarten, I guess. Maybe kindergarten and I'm thinking it was before he got out of kindergarten because it wasn't really great communication, but it was communication enough that I knew I needed to pull him from school.
Right.
He had loved pre-K, loved going to school, thought it was the greatest thing ever. And that he did, 2 years of pre-K with several different teachers and never had an issue. Well, kindergarten, this is when they started No Child Left Behind. And so they had this inclusion program for kids. They would put all of the special ed kids, they would split them up into the regular classrooms. I was a kindergarten teacher, and if she ever sees this, I loved her dearly. Her name was April Jones. Sam called her Jones, just Jones. She was fabulous. She had a whole room full of kids, and then Sam. And Sam was already reading at like a 4th grade level by the time he started kindergarten. So what do you do with a kid like that?
Right.
He wouldn't sit in the classroom. He wouldn't, comply. He wouldn't follow commands or orders. So if he was in the classroom with her, she would set him at a computer, put his headphones on him, and he would watch some dumb video. Or they would send him down to special ed.
Yeah.
Well, the special ed teacher, who's also wonderful, we had great teachers. I always tell everybody we never pulled out of public school for a bad experience. We had great people, but it's just it's a wrecked system.
Yeah.
So they sent him down to special ed. Well, she had kids with cerebral palsy, kids with Down syndrome, kids with severe needs.
Right.
So Sam would get stuck in a corner playing blocks or gears. Yeah. It just didn't work. But I remember at the time, all that to say, I could ask him, I would pick him up and he would be sad in kindergarten. And you could tell it wasn't jiving with him anymore. And he would say, Sam is sad.
Aww.
Sam is sad.
That's
yes,
sad.
it was horrible. So I'm guessing around kindergarten and going into 1st grade that we finally had a point where we could connect. But it still wasn't like Ollie is, 7 now.
Right.
And I've been able to talk to Ollie, have a conversation since he was probably 2.
Yeah, since he was Kelly's age.
Yeah. It was really delayed. Super delayed. And I remember sitting in the IEP meeting because he has an active IEP. And you know how it is. Well, I mean, you've not ever had kids in school, I guess. But you develop these relationships with these teachers. I was there all the time. I practically lived at that school. And they are good friends. I remember sitting in the IEP and telling them they were making the plan for next year. And I'm like, I'm going to homeschool him. What?
Yeah.
What? It's the worst thing you can do, Dana. No, it's a bad idea. He needs socialization. It's that same argument that you always get as a homeschooler.
Always.
How is he going to get socialized? And I was like, I really feel like this is not the best environment for him.
Right.
You know, he's not thriving
flourishing.
Here. No, exactly. So I ripped him out of school and brought him home. Tristan too. He was going into 6th grade, and we have never looked back. And homeschooling has been mega challenging, but you know Sam.
Yes.
And he's done quite well.
He's amazing. I'm telling
Thank
you, I have noticed, and this, my sister has a son on the spectrum, not quite as severe, but yours will thrive at the beginning. He had severe eczema problems. He had severe allergies. Isn't it crazy how it all goes together?
It all does go together.
And
it's called toxic poisoning.
Well,
there's a lot. We could talk in hours about that too.
It's crazy. But they figured out by the time he was 3 or 4 that he was somewhere on the spectrum. And it's manageable, but he is so intelligent. Yeah. And he is so good with his hands and like building things and figuring things out. And he's just smart. He's smart kid. Right. Sam is amazing. He's a smart kid.
Thank you.
And we came in, when was it, Friday? And he was sitting there. I don't know how long. He had his box with his stuff he draws with. And he said he was drawing them all.
Yes, he always does. He loves like logos.
Huge, intricate, Yes. Intricate things.
Well, he loves logos. And so a mall has, stores. So he's always been obsessed with malls. Even like before he could communicate, we would go and we didn't shop. He just wanted to walk through. And he can tell you, I kid you not, every mall we've ever been in, he can tell you what stores were there.
Wow.
I walk the whole mall. Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy.
He's the same way with maps. He's the same way with the Bible.
I don't understand that. Their intelligence level is through the roof.
We've talked about this. It's almost like one part of their brain, is suffering, is shut down, is not working properly, but it heightens another part. I really don't know. I remember Sam did a co-op class a few years ago, and it was a music singing class. And I didn't go into it. I try not to ever go in and say, Sam has autism. Right. He's autistic. Because I don't want to put that stigma on him from the very beginning because people treat him different. I mean, it's obvious that he's awkward. He's socially awkward.
He's socially awkward.
I want him to be able to, make his own way. Right. So we were trying out this co-op just to see how it would go. And it ended up he doesn't like it. But still, he loved the choir class that he was in.
I bet he did.
And his choir teacher had my text number, had my cell phone number, and I get a text message in the middle of the day. Did you know Sam has perfect pitch? She said that she was playing a note in the song, and she was trying to get them to sing it. And she was saying the note, and he goes, "That's an F sharp." And and she was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "I'm sorry, I think that's an F sharp."
Oh my goodness!
And so she looks, and she's like, "It is." And then she finishes the class, and she's texting me. She's like, "This is crazy."
I know.
And when we quit,
it's so rare to find someone with perfect pitch.
Well, we quit the co-op, and she begged me for months afterward. Please bring Sam back.
That's every music teacher. I'm telling you, it's like the dream.
It is, but it's. I think it's almost like you have someone who's blind and they can hear better, or someone who's deaf and they can see better. I really think that what Sam is lacking in one area, in socialization or whatever, imagination or empathy or whatever it is, it's heightened in other areas. He's crazy. He just has a crazy memory and crazy ability to download information, including sounds. Yeah. So it's really bizarre.
It is bizarre. He's crazy.
Well, thanks.
Good at stuff.
Yeah. It's very, it's really fun to, he's got, I don't know how many hymn books he has now, but he has them memorized.
I know. Well, he'll do a song.
The song number.
I know. He'll do a song for out of his lesson book. Okay. So we'll be doing his lesson book, and he won't be looking at the music. I'm like, Sam, you've been doing this. Do you have that memorized? He has memorized.
I know.
He memorizes them less than a week.
He read one Sunday. This was back before the guys went to Barbados, and Mac was out. Mac, our Bible reader. I'm sorry. And so Sam read the scripture. Well, Grayson preached, the morning service and the evening service, and it was the same scripture, the same passage for both sermons for whatever reason. I don't remember why. Somewhere in Genesis. So Sam read them both. Well, we were on our way to eat that night, and I said, Sam, you read that scripture today twice. I said, you probably have it memorized. He started reciting it and got almost all the way through it. And he was like, I can't remember, but I really think that he has this photographic with words. And with music
and notes,
printed, if he likes it.
Yeah,
if he likes
it.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's crazy. I know.
He's
the best soul winning partner you could ever have because you get stumped and you're like, Sam, where's that Bible verse about this? Sam, where's that verse about this? He knows exactly where it's at.
That's awesome.
Yep, it's awesome.
That is awesome. Okay, so early signs. I kind of wanted to go over this because is it hard for a parent to, I know you said you got very offended.
I did.
And I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
But because,
well, nobody wants to hear that something's wrong with their kids.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is it hard? I mean, what are some ways that you just kind of have to learn to, okay, accept it? There's something wrong with my child.
Well, it's like anything else. My husband preaches a lot that we need to self-evaluate. So many times we need to self-evaluate. We need to self-evaluate. Well, it's the same with your kids. You know, I know you've met those people that think, oh, my kids are just perfect. They never do anything wrong at all. My kids are wonderful. No, it's not me either. And so, but you know, you have to come to a point where you listen to reality and listen to what people are telling you and take it. The lady who approached me at church, it's funny. She's somebody I'd known my entire life. She's somebody who's not dramatic at all. She's not some pot stirring troublemaker at church.
Right.
She's not even really a super friendly person. She was somebody who sort of kept to herself. And she approached me at church with a concern.
Right.
So I guess, you know, consider the source. You know, is this somebody who's trying to make you feel bad, or is this somebody who legitimately has a concern for your child? I don't think that Judy would ever do anything to hurt me. She wanted to help me. Right. So definitely consider the source. And now, back then, you know, there wasn't access to the information that there is now. You've got so much information at your fingertips. You know, if you think your child is delayed, and plus doctors look for it now. It's like a standard, you know, thing that they check for. Back then, this was 04, 05, I guess.
If you go for well baby, but there's a lot of people that even that we know in our crowd. That see, I do well baby up to a year. I don't do well baby. Yeah, I do up to a year because I've had some that have been on the even Hannah is on the smaller end anyway. Right. So I kind of want to just keep. I know she is. So I kind of want to keep track of their growth, and and establish a relationship with my doctor. Sure. So he gets to know my kid, but there's a lot of people that don't even do well baby. No. So they're not being asked the milestones. So would you think that it's a good idea to even kind of keep on top of that?
Definitely, kind of especially if it's your first child. If you, you know, this is a second or a third or a fourth child, you should have a measuring stick to go by. You know, kind of know where a typical child is going to fall. And, you know, I mean, yes, every child is different, but if they're not talking by 2, something's wrong. Yeah. If they're not communicating with you by 2 years old, something's wrong. You know, there's a need there. If they won't look at you, if they won't respond to their name, if, you know, you have to worry every time you open a door, they're going to bolt across a parking lot, something is wrong. A runner is a sure sign that something is off.
Yeah, I didn't want to talk about that.
Just no awareness of what's going on around you.
Like the situation.
Another key sign, and my husband always tells me, be careful with this one because this is a sign of abuse as well. But a child that will stick their hand in their pants after they use the bathroom and they wipe it and just it doesn't bother them. You know, Sam was so bad about this.
Like it doesn't disgust them.
No, it's just it's just no, or just run around in a dirty diaper for hours and hours and hours. You know, and never. Of course, you know, hopefully you're not letting your kid run around in a dirty diaper forever. But a child who's just not bothered. You know, it doesn't bother them at all. Samuel would always wait to use the bathroom in the middle of the night when he was old enough to be in a toddler bed, and then sure as anything, he would dig in his diaper and wipe it everywhere. I can't tell you how many nights.
Dana, that's awful.
It was horrible.
That's awful.
Yep. Toys, bedding, dressers, the floor, the carpet, everything.
Oh, that's horrible.
And potty training was a nightmare. So
how old was he before he was potty trained?
4.
He was 4.
Yeah, he was late 4.
Okay.
It took a while. I mean, it was a challenge. What finally worked for Samuel, and it's different for every kid, I guess. I bought, the old-fashioned plastic, that you would put over a pair of underwear or a cloth diaper or something like that. He called them plastic pants, and he would say, "No plastic pants, no plastic pants." That's what finally worked. And I would let him run around, nude. That's what it took. But when we would, have to put something on, we would put the plastic pants on because I didn't want to mess. And it finally clicked with him. And a bad spanking. That's another thing we should talk about is disciplining a child with special needs.
I wanted to talk about that.
Samuel, we were at the beach. I guess he was 4, or it was about time he potty trained, so it would have been 4. And he used the bathroom in the pool. He pooped in the pool, and it made me so mad because here you are at the and it's like that's like they usually shut the pool down, you know, at the community pools if a kid uses the bathroom in the pool. And I was so angry, and I shouldn't have spanked him being angry, but I took him to the little bathroom there, and I wore him out, and he never pooped in the pool again. He did have some accidents, but he didn't poop in the pool again. But we did discipline Sam. Granted, we gave.
So that's what I want to talk about, because there are some parents with, and this is probably going to get the haters out, but oh well, they can just, you know.
Well, this is reality. This is what the Bible says.
Exactly. And does the Bible change for, you know, kids with special needs? Because as I've seen now, I mean, Sam is a great young man.
He sure is.
But it took a lot of work to get him there.
It sure did.
And just because he had special needs, he still was aware.
Exactly.
You know, of things.
Well, you know, and you get to a point where a child can be aware of right and wrong. Even if they don't understand the gravity of what they're doing, you can get them to where they know. I mean, I wasn't spanking him, you know, at 2 for not listening to me. It wasn't like that at all.
Right, exactly.
But when it got to the, prime example, and I didn't spank him for this, but I corrected this behavior. We would go to school a certain way when he was, when he was in pre-K. So we would drive a certain route, right? Well, one morning we're on our way to school, and there was road construction. So I had to detour. Immediately, he starts this screaming and banging his head in the car seat, mad. And I thought, what's going on?
Because you diverted.
Next morning, same exact thing, diverted, screaming, because he thought I wasn't going to school, I guess. He, you know, we're taking a different route.
Right.
So it hit me the next day. That's what it is. It's the route. He's mad. So from then on out, I would go a different way every day. And we got to where if something bothered him, you know, so many families, see, you'll find two camps in this. Some people are so accommodating to kids with special needs that it's just, it enables them. Just like you would enable a drug addict or enable, you know, a lazy person. Some parents are so accommodating, they never potty train the kid. Oh, he can't. They don't discipline the kid. Oh, we can't discipline, you know. And then there's the other side of the camp that are just no mercy at all. Right. So you need to be in the middle.
Right. Exactly. So I've always said that. You have to find balance. You have to be in the middle.
We would never, we decided early on, and I had a doctor tell me early on, not to let him decide the course of our life.
Oh, a doctor told you that?
An osteopath doctor. He told me it was some of the best advice I had ever given or been given. I took him, I don't know when we started Dr. Mark. He was fabulous. He died in a farming accident.
Aww.
I know. He was wonderful. Little Iranian man that I could barely understand. It was so awesome, though. He said, and I don't know if you could see my hand. I remember talking to him. I'm crying because Sam was like lapping the room. You know, he wouldn't even sit. He was being loud. And this man had a huge accent. I could barely understand him. I'm trying to tell him what's going on. And I'm like, I'm sorry. He just won't sit. He won't sit. And he said, if you put the bar for him way down here, he said, that's as high as he's ever going to go. He said, you got to raise the bar. He said, if he will only sit for a minute right now, he said, then that's fine. He said, but tomorrow it needs to be 2. The next day it needs to be 3. The next day it needs to be 5. And he encouraged me in not to let Samuel be disabled.
Right.
Don't allow him to get away with whatever. He is capable of doing things. It's just going to be more difficult for him. And that was like some of the best advice I ever got. And his teachers and therapists, you know, were sort of like that. But like you get to church, and obviously we don't do church nursery now. But back then I did. Well, I would take him in the church nursery, and it was, oh, Sam, he doesn't want to color. He doesn't want to do that. Let's just walk him around the entire church for an hour. It was always this very accommodating behavior because you know how it is. You know how people are. Just like when they don't want to spank their kid. Oh, it's okay. It's that mentality. Whereas we wanted to correct bad behavior. You know, yes, there are times when the child is going to be extremely overwhelmed, like Wonderworks yesterday. I told you the first time I went, I took a group of special needs kids. And you were in there so crazy and loud and wild, and, you know, you got to make allowances. But, you know, Samuel learned to sit through church. You know, once we left that church that we were in that had nursery and started going to churches that didn't have nursery, it took a long time, but we finally were able to train him to sit in church by doing the same thing you do with any kid.
Well, and that would fit with any kid because, I mean, we've got Kelly, who obviously does not. She's not on the spectrum. You know, you've seen her.
Very social.
But she's very high maintenance and very strong-willed. And I feel like it's that way with her. Okay, today you can sit for 2 minutes, but next time you better sit for 3. Next time you better sit for 4. That's a good philosophy for anything, I feel like.
It sure is.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I have seen where, I don't know, parents, maybe they feel bad because they don't know, is he really getting it? Should I be disciplining him for this when it's not clicking, you know?
Right.
And,
well, I think as a parent, you know.
Yeah, and I
get
think
to maybe not at first, but I think after some time you do figure it out. You know if they are okay. One of his therapists, this was before he was diagnosed with autism even, when we were doing like the therapy over the summer, he would get his Hot Wheels cars, he had them in a little plastic tote, and he would shake it really loud and he would scream and throw it. Can you imagine Sam doing this? He was horrible. I feel bad because sometimes we're like, Samuel, you're so difficult when you're little. I'm probably giving him a complex. He would shake it, he would scream and throw it down on the ground. And she was like, okay, here's what you have to do. She said, you take the box. She said, you sit it on the table. She said, if he wants the box. And she said, you say, open, and point to it. And he, you know, you would tell him, say, open. And he'd, scream and go crazy. Then I'm not opening it. And it's like any kid. You have to outdo them. You have to dig your
I'm
heels
right there right now with Kelly.
And don't cave. You just, and it's just like that with a kid with autism, or a kid that can't talk, or a kid that's deaf, or a kid that, it's the same principle, because the principle of the Bible applies, you know? And then when they get to the point where they're doing something that you know they're doing wrong, then they need to be disciplined. Right. We always tell Samuel he got less spankings than any of the other kids, but he did get spankings.
Okay. See, and that's where too, I like that you said when they get to know where they know they are doing wrong. Yeah. And that's why I do not agree with the spanking babies thing.
No, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Because if you look at Hannah, who's 6 months old.
Yeah, I know.
Imagine whacking her.
I don't know.
Hannah, why are you crying?
Well, if you're spanking your kid at 6 months old, you better look out for DCS knocking on your door. That's unbelievable.
I know. So, well, nope, I thought that was someone else's bad. No, but I was, that's kind of my guideline. I know, I go, when I start disciplining them,
well, just like we're accountable for our sin when we know, when we understand.
Therefore, to him that knoweth to do good and
that's
do
exactly
it not,
right. When a child knows that they need to be corrected for that behavior, 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I usually start it, but it's early. And he was diagnosed by what, 2 or 3? Did you say 3?
He was 3. It was right around like at the time he turned 3 years old. Yes. And it started, you know, the whole process of therapies and things like that. And then we've homeschooled since he was pre-K, and then pre-K, or I guess preschool, pre-K, kindergarten, and then I've homeschooled since 1st grade. And he is a sophomore now. He's 16. Okay.
And he is thriving.
Oh my gosh, he's a genius. He makes it so easy on me. Somebody was asking me about teaching high school last week. I'm like, I don't have to teach high school.
Yeah, he
Samuel's like a genius. I know. He's already doing his junior math book. He got done with his sophomore math like 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom, could you order me the next math book? Okay, sure. Can you teach me how to do that? Because I don't know.
That would be me.
I hope Sam's going to be around for a long time so he can teach his siblings the math. Yes, but he's a joy. Samuel is a joy. It's like we were talking about yesterday. Most, you know, your difficult children are your easiest teenagers.
It always is.
I know. Well, Samuel just nearly did me in when he was little, and now he is just a true joy.
When you were talking yesterday, you told me a story about your brother's wedding or something.
Yes. My brother got married. Samuel was 18 months, so we had not had any diagnosis yet. But he was walking, you know, and able to get around. But you know, my brother married a girl who's Catholic. So, I mean, it was this huge event. Right. You know how these people have these mega weddings and 10 parties that you attend. And we were down at this real fancy restaurant on the river. And I was so excited, had this, you know, awesome dress on. And I literally ended up just walking up and down the riverfront because he wouldn't sit. You know, we had all these beautiful buffet tables and this fancy food. And he wasn't even interested in the food. He wouldn't sit and eat. Yeah. So we just walked for like 2 hours up and down the river and fed the fish. So
did you feel like this is going to be my life forever?
It was depressing. Yeah, I went through a very hard time. You know, this was at the inception of the internet. And so, you know, we had internet access, and I remember sitting for hours and hours and hours and just researching and researching and researching and researching and looking and ordering books. And there wasn't a ton of information on the internet, but Amazon was a bookseller. Yeah. And I ordered a lot of books, and I went to the library, and the networking was huge, because once you meet a person that has a child with autism, they know another person that has a child with autism. And so I had this network of ladies that I talked to, and I remember calling, this is back when you called people, you didn't text them, calling people, you know, who had this child for, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years and could give me advice. And I mean, that's honestly what kind of carried me through, like any other experience in your life, is people who've already walked that road.
Exactly.
So it was great. I had a lady that took me to, it's called STEP. I can't remember what it stands for. It's like something to do with special needs benefits in Tennessee. I don't even remember now. But we went to this meeting, and there was this kid there that was like 12 or something in a wheelchair. He was in like a diaper. And I remember Becky telling me, that is ridiculous. He should be potty trained. That is parents that are not doing their job. And so I'm thinking, because, you know, I was then of the mindset, oh, I have this child. He can never do anything.
Right.
So that was another example of somebody who told me, hey, you know, you need to raise the bar. But I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that, but what else were we?
What did I ask you?
I can't remember.
Oh, we were just talking about the wedding, or I was asking how it was, like mentally,
it was
just
hard.
accepting it.
That's what it was. Very, very hard.
Yeah, I want it for those of you that might listen though, and you have children that maybe you're thinking this child's a little different. You know, he's not keeping up with his siblings. So we went over a few of the guidelines for kind of things to spot, but let's go over them again one more time. Okay. So running away is a big thing.
Yes. Bolting. Yes.
Bolting anywhere, any situation, right?
Yeah. Anywhere. A child that just won't stay with you. A child that literally exists in his own little world or her own little world. You know, it doesn't really know what's going on around them. Doesn't, you know, honestly, doesn't even see other people. It's like Samuel couldn't see other people. Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like he literally just existed in Sam's world, you know? Right. And we even said that he had Sam syndrome when he was little. They called it autism. We called it Sam syndrome. It's like he just did his own thing. Bolting is huge. Lack of eye contact.
Yes.
Lack of response to their name. Unable to communicate as far as, you know, can you get your shoes? You know, can you, whatever. Do you want cookies?
Did he cry a lot?
He did cry a lot. And he would fuss and scream and bang on things, and because he couldn't communicate. Like any person who can't communicate, they get across somehow, but that was his method of communication.
Did he throw fits a lot?
Yeah.
Like
well, I mean, not a lot.
You said banging.
When the routine would change or something would be out of the ordinary, but I mean, not just like, he wasn't like one of those that would abuse or hurt himself. Okay. You know, some kids.
They like bang their head and things.
No, he didn't do that, thankfully. He banged his head on his car seat some, but just when he was angry. Right. No, he didn't. And he was never violent. Like, he got bigger, and once we started to be able to communicate, it wasn't ever really violent, you know. And I say this, there are a lot of kids out there with autism that are way worse off than Sam was. And, you know, nonverbal all the way up into adulthood. Yeah. And you've got this hulking 20-year-old that's 220 pounds. And every kid is different. And so I'm basing my experience off of the child that I have. Exactly. So I'm not saying that every kid can be transformed into what Sam is. I am not that naive to believe that. I know there are kids out there.
And that's why they call it the spectrum.
That's exactly
because there are some with milder forms.
Samuel is somewhere in the middle. Yes, somewhere in the middle.
And then you have the verbal and you have the nonverbal.
Right. And exactly. Yeah.
So it could be totally different. And even expectations, do you think?
Sure.
Could be totally different from someone that's nonverbal.
That's exactly right.
Someone that is verbal,
and I think there's so many factors that play into it. We put Samuel on a gluten and casein-free diet. At the time, it was casein. That was the big, you know, the protein and the dairy. Take him off of that. Take him off the gluten. Right. So he did gluten casein-free for about a year. I think that helped. His therapies helped. He was on a lot of different supplements. I think that helped. And then I truly believe, and I've said this over and over, I give credit to Tristan so much because Samuel had an older brother that didn't treat him like he was mentally retarded or slow. Exactly. He treated him like a little brother. He was mean to him. You know, and shove him and they were brothers, you know. He didn't treat Sam
He didn't sugarcoat him. No. Treat him like he was wrapped in plastic.
No, not at all. He just, you know, and still to this day, they have a great relationship. And I've always said that I think having an older brother has really played a huge role in Samuel's progress, you know. Right. I really 100% think that. And I also think bringing him home played a huge role in Samuel's progress, too, because he wasn't there at the school being just neglected, you know, in a corner somewhere. Right. He was with me having to actually, like, they were going to allow him to go to first grade in their IEP meeting on that last day that I was there. He wouldn't write. He did not want to hold a pencil, crayon, do nothing. And so they had ordered him this machine that he could type on. I was like, no.
Yeah.
So I took him home and we did handwriting with tears, and it was handwriting or handwriting without tears. For us, it was handwriting with tears for a long time, but the child learned to write. And you see him now, it's all he does. Draw, write, But they were already, oh, well, he can't do it, so we're going to give him this crutch. You know?
Right, exactly.
So I do think that some kids could advance more if they weren't given all these crutches.
Right, exactly. So now that he is, 17, is he 17 now?
He's 16.
16. Now that he's 16, he's still, now when I met you guys, okay, so I met you in person. I had met you already. The subject of Sam never really came up. We never discussed his autism, never talked about it. So when we stopped by your church, and I first interacted with Sam. Did I ask you?
You did.
I did.
You spotted it immediately.
That's how I am, though.
Yeah.
I just am.
Yeah. So did Andy. There's a lady at our church who was the same way. Yeah.
Yes.
Just immediately. I think if you're familiar with it, you know what you're looking for. If you're a teacher, that's kind of,
And with my nephew that has it too, I just noticed the little quirks, but I noticed he was super smart.
Yeah.
And I noticed he was very, but it's just the social.
Sure.
You know, I had forgotten if I had asked you when you brought it up.
Yep.
So what are some situations now? Obviously, about the only thing going on now, he's potty trained, obviously.
Yeah.
So you don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
But I've noticed you're very honest with him.
Yep, I am.
And you're very, Samuel, you're doing this. And
well,
he accepts it pretty well.
He really does. There was a long time that I didn't talk to him about having autism.
Okay.
We didn't broach that. Once we got to where we could talk, it's like with any kind of kid that grows up and becomes able to communicate. There are certain subjects that take time for that child to be able to understand. Well, it took a long time. He was probably 12 or 13 before we actually approached the subject of, hey, this is what, this is why you struggle the way you do with some things. And so we've had a lot of talks like that. He knows that he has difficulty for that reason. But I am honest with him. He has a lot of nervous tics. It's called stimming, stimmy behavior. And so I try to stop his stimmy behavior, and I'll tell him sometimes, Samuel, you're stimming. Samuel, stop. Because he makes clicky sounds, or he does things, he'll do things with his hand. He loves to lead the music, but a lot of times when he leads the music, he leads it like this. Because he loves to hear. He can hear better when he cups his hand. And he's done that since he was a little boy.
Oh, that's cute.
He would talk and say, like when he was little, he would do that. He would look at things like this. I don't know why. He would take something and he's like, it's the weirdest thing. So, I've kind of told him, don't do that. Your husband is back now. Don't do that. So, yes, I am honest with him. But he struggles in areas like just how to talk to people, what to say and when to say it. He loves soul winning, but he's so stinking smart and over the top. It's almost like a biblical philosophy class when he's a soul winner. So we're trying to tone him down a little bit in his soul winning and fit it to the person he's talking to. You can do this if you're talking to a grown-up that has some knowledge, but with a 6-year-old, it needs to be more baseline.
Right.
So just awareness of things like that.
It's just the social awareness that he struggles with
Exactly. And reading people's emotions. Knowing if someone, Mac, who goes to church here, loves to joke, but he does it deadpan. I mean,
so Sam's
and so he would ask me, when Mac first started coming here, and Mac would joke around or say something, in kidding and jest, and he would ask me, is Mac joking? Yes, Mac's joking. So just reading people and knowing he kind of struggles with that a little. More than anything else, though, Samuel wants a girlfriend. He wants to get married. He wants to have children. He's already chosen names for his children. And so that's what I pray for Sam, that God will send the perfect girl for Samuel. Because I know she's out there. I know she is. There's no doubt about it. So we'll tell him sometimes, if you want a girlfriend, you've got to wear deodorant. If you want a girlfriend, you can't be picking your teeth.
That's what you tell every teenage boy, though.
Exactly. This is true. This is true. This is true.
Hygiene. Important.
Yeah.
If you want a girlfriend, hygiene is important.
Right, exactly.
Yes, very good. So he will be completely functioning.
I think he will. He doesn't drive yet because he has trouble. That's another thing with multitasking. When we're out and we're looking, we're driving or whatever, he loves logos, like I said, and road signs and things like that.
Oh, look. Oh, look. Oh,
exactly.
Look.
So we have not, my plan is to get his learner's permit this summer and go ahead and start him because he wants to drive. But it may take us 2 years before we get to the point that we're ready to release him in a vehicle.
Right.
But we're not going to cripple him and say, oh, he can't drive. Sorry. He has autism. There's no way. I'm not doing that to him. Grayson and I are going to die someday. And Samuel's going to need to take care of himself.
Right.
So our job is to get Samuel as functional, as capable, as as able as possible so he can take care of himself.
See, and I think you've done great. And I think that's why God gives all of us our children for a reason, right?
Absolutely. You know, we have always said that Samuel dropped the veil for us. He helped to rip that veil away, because with Samuel, if it hadn't been for Samuel, I would never investigated vaccines. Never.
Yeah.
I probably would have just kept injecting my kids and not thought a thing about it. So Samuel's the reason I stopped trusting modern medicine so much. Samuel's the reason that we started to question just the way things were, you know, the typical standard. Samuel is the reason that we always say this, that we are the way we are. He is a huge catalyst in us just opting out of what the social norm is.
Right.
Because we started to question everything with him.
Right.
We had doctors tell us, I had a doctor tell me one time Samuel was mentally retarded. He would be in a home before it was over with. Yeah, there was no hope for him. There's no cure for autism. I got up and walked out of the office and thought, there's not my son. You don't know my son. No.
You don't know Dana.
That's exactly right. Exactly. But anyway, same as Jewel. And I'm thankful for him, because I'm Dana because of Sam. I'm who I am now because of what I've, gone through with him.
Right. Exactly. And then your younger sons, like you said, benefited from that as well.
Absolutely.
So you think without a doubt it was vaccines?
I think that vaccines played a part.
Okay.
You know, I do. I don't think that it was necessarily just a vaccine. I think that Samuel.
You think genetics go into things like
absolutely.
this?
But I think we're all born with compromised immune systems.
Yeah.
Very much now. I think that there's so much poison in our world. There's poison in the water. There's poison in the food. There's poison in the air. The electrification of the earth. There are so many things that our bodies battle all the time. And I think, I just had someone talk to me at church, a friend at church, talk about how you gain your lymphatic system from your mom, that's kind of passed down. Well, I have a weak immune system. I have a lot of problems. And so I had some dental work done while I was pregnant with Samuel. I think that played a factor. And it was just, it was like the perfect storm.
Yeah.
It was already compromised, and then you inject a child with poison, which the amount of poison that they put in a child that young now is insanity.
It's insane.
It's completely insane.
It's even more now than when Sam was.
That's exactly right.
It's crazy.
And so I think the vaccines it was a trigger.
Right.
I think that he maybe still would have had some issues, but I don't think he would be as bad as he is now. Or as bad as he became without the vaccines.
Have you done detoxes and things?
We have. We did a lot of detox when he was first diagnosed with autism. I had that friend Becky that took me, to the step thing, and she was huge into chelation and detox. Of course, at the time there were a lot of doctors that were out there called DAN doctors, Defeat Autism Now, and I think they were really just sort of taking advantage of parents with autism and selling you this magic concoction. But we did do some stuff that even today, actually saw a naturopath for the first time when Samuel was little, try to figure out some of his issues. And we did some detox with him and still, incorporate the same kind of things today. So,
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So if a parent has a child that they believe is on the spectrum, what would you even recommend now as far as like doctors?
I would totally I do. I would completely and 100% recommend that you contact someone in your state. If they're younger, in the state of Tennessee, if you're younger than 3, you can contact your doctor and they will hook you up with Tennessee Early Intervention. So I don't know how it is in another state. This is how it works in Tennessee. Tennessee Early Intervention will come out and do an evaluation and exam for nothing, and they will pay for you to see a doctor and things like that. After 3 years old, it's called Child Fund in Tennessee. And same thing, they come out, they do the evaluation, they get you to the right people. And I mean, I don't know how I would be with like actually going to, a pre-K or a school now.
Right.
But as a parent, you have the right to be there.
Yeah.
And I will say 100%, we had fabulous therapists, fabulous teachers, fabulous ladies. It takes a special person to do that job.
Right, it does.
And they were very hands-on and they were very involved with me. They would send me home every day when I would get in with all of this stuff that they had bought for him. Here we bought this toy. Here we, got him this book. Here you need to try this. We printed off all these games for you to try with him. So we had a lot of help. And I think that really helped Samuel too. It taught me. I felt like I was qualified to be like a speech therapist by the time it was over with. Because we did speech for years and years.
Yeah.
So I would definitely get help. Even if you employ their tactics at home, there's so much information on the internet now.
Oh, yeah.
So much. But yes, I would get the help of someone in that professional, field that can assist you.
Because there are so many things that you've had to deal with Sam that I never had faced with mine. So I wouldn't even know where to begin.
Sure. Well, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there now. So I would also, if you think there's something wrong with your child, I would find somebody who has a child that deals with this. And I would get some help. You know, because that's what I had early on. One of my good friends, Diane, that I've been friends with literally since, you know, Samuel was diagnosed with autism. We met in the parking lot, Sam's school. We're still good friends. We still bounce stuff off each other. So you'll find some, you know, camaraderie in parents of other kids like that.
Yeah, definitely. So if you guys have any quesems, make sure you check the comments.
Sure. I'll do my best to do that. I'm sorry. I try.
What's your email? Maybe they can email it.
Yes, it is trysam2, TRYSAM2, the number 2 at Comcast.net. You can email me anytime.
Where did that email come from? I've always wanted to ask you.
It was Tristan and Sam, and I had 2 kids. That's how long I've had it.
I thought you were always like, come on, Sam, you can try. You can try.
No, Tristan is TRYSTAN, so it's Trysam2 at Comcast. Yeah.
That makes sense.
I'm old and I've had that email a really long time.
I've had
probably
it forever.
The first email I ever had. So.
Well, let's see. I have 8 kids. Mine is musicalmommy5 at Gmail. So that shows you. I have like my spam folders full because, you know, you start getting all the spam and stuff from it.
But yes, feel free to contact me. And if you know, need a phone number, then contact Cassandra and she'll give it to you. So.
Okay. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not if you're a hater, though.
Yeah, no kidding. None of that. None of that.
We don't do that here. So, all right, good. Awesome. I'm glad we talked about
so am I. This is perfect. Yeah.
Until you know,
literally off the cuff.
It was.
Like we walked in the office with no idea.
I know. I'm like, come on, okay. What? I need a topic. I don't know. What do you want to talk about? I don't know. And then we sat down, and I'm like, how about this?
That's perfect. Well, I'll always talk about this.
So yes, he's a remarkable young man. But you're remarkable parents, and God gave you to him because he knew you could handle it.
I hope so. I think so.
Yeah.
He's been a joy for us. He's taught us a lot.
Yep. All right, ladies. So I'm gonna have this premiering tomorrow, and we'll be back to lives next week. So, all right, I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.
Okay.
Oh, not yet. Now.